Hi guys, this is Daniel Alexander Cannon here on Logic Before Authority again. This is a follow-up video to the video yesterday, but maybe you didn't see that one. I would encourage you to look at it, but this video is going to be briefly discussing the Trump Playboy interview in reference to his words about nuclear weapons. The reason why this is so interesting to me is because this was from 1990, as you can see at the top of the screen on the left. This interview was 1990, and his number one concern about being president was nuclear weapons. And I'm going to show you how the interview went. I've done this before, but I thought it's time we do it again. And the reason why this is pertinent now is because he's going to be president again. He will. I've told you before he left office, he will be president again. So, of course, there's going to be a lot of scandal, just like there is. You got to keep the distraction show going, in order to keep the people sleeping and not paying attention to the truth, which is what I'm stating right now. So let's get on to the interview here. Now here, you can go pull this up yourself. All you got to do is do a Google for Donald Trump Playboy interview, and you'll see the 1990 interview right there at the top. Now, let me just read this for you. It says, I'll just start from the top. What would be some of President Trump's longer-term views on the future? He says, I think of the future, but I refuse to paint it. Anything can happen, but I often think of nuclear war. Now, that's the first thing that come to his mind in this interview. What this is called is predictive programming. They put out things ahead of time in order to get your mind used to the idea or concept that something could happen, so that when it does, you were kind of expecting it in a way, which doesn't help the person who's blown to smithereens or their life's destroyed or anything else, but that's what they do. Now he says, I think of the future, but I refuse to paint it. That would be basically saying that I refuse to lay it out for you, or refuse to say it's going to happen for sure, that kind of thing. But he knew right now, back then when they did this, one, he was going to be president, and two, that he would be the president that a nuke went off during his presidency. And that's what's going to happen. How many times have I been right? Okay, so the next question, nuclear war? I've always thought about the issue of nuclear war. It is very important. It is a very important element in my thought process. It's the ultimate catastrophe. The biggest problem with this world has, and nobody's focusing on the nuts and bolts of it. Apologize, I'm doing this off of my phone at the moment, so I'm not on my normal computer. He says it's a little like sickness. Come on, notifications. It's a little like sickness. People don't believe they're going to get sick. Interesting how he threw that in there, right? With the pandemic that just went off. He basically predicted it right in here, in which they knew back then too that was going to happen. I know some of you might not believe it, but it's a fact. Okay, let's keep going. Said people don't want to believe it, that they're not going to get sick until they do. Nobody wants to talk about it. I believe the greatest of all stupidities is people's believing it will never happen. So people are stupid to think it would never happen, he's saying. Yep. Because everybody knows how destructive it will be. So nobody uses weapons. What bullshit. It's a strange statement in general, obviously. And then he goes on. Does any of that fuzzy thinking exist around the Trump office? On a much lower level, I would never hire anyone who thinks that way because he has absolutely no common sense. He's living in a world of make-believe. It's like thinking the Titanic can't sink. So what he's saying here is that I'll just read again and then I'll comment again. I would never hire anybody like that who thinks that way because he has absolutely no common sense. He's living in a world of make-believe, meaning he's talking about the average person or person that isn't awake, doesn't have eyes to see, doesn't have ears to hear, like a lot of people out there, you know. Okay, so let's keep going. It's a little hard to see on this screen, so it's messing me up with my dialogue here a little bit. It says, too many countries have nuclear weapons. No one knows where they're all pointed, what button it takes to launch them. The bomb Harry Truman dropped on Hiroshima was a toy next to today's. We have thousands of weapons pointed at us, and nobody even knows if they're going to go in the right direction. So what he's telling you there, because this whole story is hitting at what's going to happen. So there's going to be a nuclear weapon or a missile that has a nuclear tip on it that is likely going to blow up in a place that it wasn't supposedly supposed to blow up in. And I have a few suspicions as to these locations. Of course, probably New York City would be the number one. Then Moscow might be number two, and I'll show you a reason for that here in just a moment. Okay, let's continue on here. They've never really been tested. These jerks in charge don't know how to paint a wall, and we're relying on them to shoot nuclear missiles to Moscow. See? Mention of Moscow. Every word that's in this interview is predictive programming. Okay? So in this scenario, it's Moscow blowing up. What happens if they don't go there? What happens if our computer systems aren't working? Nobody knows if this equipment works. Now that's ridiculous because the military, they know if their equipment works. They know in a nuclear missile silo, they have systems that check, double check, and recheck to double check to make sure everything is working and all this kind of stuff. The military does not operate like this. So this is just, again, predictive programming. Oops, a missile went off and it went to the wrong country, or it wasn't supposed to go off at all. Oh my God, we blew up a city of 3 million people. You know, that's basically about what's going to go down, something along those lines. It says, what happens if our computer systems aren't working? Nobody knows if this equipment works. And I've seen numerous reports lately. Now, he's a real estate developer in New York City, supposedly at this time, right? Of course, that's not all he was. He was being prepped for being a president, to be the fall guy. He is playing the role of a Christ-like figure, where he's being persecuted and burnt down, and all this is all wrong, and he got cheated out of an election, and all it is a script with many distractions, with an underlying diabolical plan. I hope you understand that. Okay. So let's keep going here. Here in this one, I'm not going to read all this, but I did read this, but wanted to show you where it's talking about shooting nuclear missiles to Moscow. Make sure I point that out, which I did. And how would President Trump handle it? He would believe very strongly in a real strong military. He wouldn't trust anyone. He wouldn't trust the Russians. Mention of Russia again. He wouldn't trust our allies. He'd have a huge military arsenal, perfected. Now Trump's going to do all this himself. He's going to build the missiles. He's going to perfect it. And the truth is he ain't involved in none of this. He's a stage actor. Yeah, he might go do a tour of a nuclear facility, but he wouldn't know what one button there did. You know, he's an actor. He's playing a role, just like he did for The Apprentice and some of the movies he was in. So, let's go on to the next one here. Actually, I didn't finish reading the last one. Part of the problem is that we're defending some of the wealthiest countries in the world for nothing. So there's part of the hint. Okay? We're being laughed at around the world defending Japan. Wait, if you believe that the public shares these views and that you could do the job, why not consider running for president? I'd do the job as well or better than anyone else. It's my hope that George Bush can do a great job. And what job was George Bush in charge of doing? Well, he was in charge of this. I'll show you here in it's actually the other way. What was George Bush in charge of? George Bush was in charge of this, right here. Wasn't he? That's what George Bush did. And that's what he's making reference to. That he'll do a good job and fool the people. Were you fooled? Or how long did it take for you to figure it out? Right? This card is a card that's a playing card that is from a game that was made in 1990. I got it right here. Let's see. Somewhere's here. I apologize, guys. I'm not in the right setup here to be doing this exactly right. It was 1990 or 1995 when this came out. But it's a card game. The Illuminati card game, basically. You can Google it and look at a lot of the images for yourself. And I have some other ones here as well. Like, of course, we're all familiar with this one now, right? They predicted that would happen. Never happened in any of our lifetimes. But all of a sudden, that's how they operate. They plant the concepts in your mind. Just like this one I mentioned in the last video. Post office. Shootouts at the post office. Remember that? Do you know when that happened? It happened in about 1997. Just like 2 years after this card game came out. And they predicted it. Why? Because all those events, all the big events that you see on television are all controlled, contrived. Even if someone died, they don't mind killing people because, well, they just don't care. But all these big events are all controlled and all are designed to control the people and to prepare the people for the system, the Great Reset that I warned y'all guys about somewhere around 7 years ago. I could see it in their propaganda that there was a reset coming. I kept saying it over and over in different videos and showing you all the evidence and everything. So anyways, I wanted to show you this so that you were well aware of it. And also, I was going to show you this real quick. That is the cover for the magazine for the interview. And this is kind of what I wanted to show you. This is 2 weeks ago. Trump says nukes are world's biggest threat. All it takes is one madman, right? So other propaganda and predictive programming out there shouting this out, that this is something that they're planning, just like what happened in 2001 with the two twins that were merged into one when two become one. It's tied even to the transgender agenda. So you can pause it and read what some of these say. This was just on March 27th. Trump tells Americans to pray after Putin, here we are back to Russia again, reveals nuclear weapons plan. Can you smell the smoke yet, guys? Can you smell the smoke? Can you see the light coming up across the corner over yonder? Sadly, I'm sure I'm right about this. I wish I wasn't, and I hope I'm wrong. All right, guys, that's it for now. I just wanted to share this with you so that you would be up to speed, and maybe you can share it with some of your friends. Remember when, last thing here, remember when Trump suggested, let me go one more. When Trump suggested, supposedly, but again, all of it's scripted, all of it's propaganda, all of it is either lies or a setup. But here's where he was talking about blowing up hurricanes with a nuclear weapon. Yeah, that would not blow up a hurricane. It would make it a supercane or a hypercane is what it would do. Yeah, hypercane, that's what I called it years ago, because that's exactly what it would do. It would superheat the freaking core of the storm and cause the storm to spin even faster. That's exactly what would happen. So, anyways, guys, that is it for this video. I thank y'all guys very much. If y'all guys like my work, and I know all of you do, but for any new people here, if you like my work, I'm going to try to get the links down below this video. But if they're not there, you can look back about 2 or 3 videos under any of the videos that are longer ones, and you'll see all my links for my support pages. I am going through some trying times right now, but my attitude is just fine, and I'm physically fine, and my Father in heaven is for me, so no one can prevail standing against me. So all you haters out there, and you know who you are, my Father in heaven likes me. He loves me, and you can't touch me. To the rest of you, I love you. Our Father loves you too, and we'll talk to you again soon. This has been Daniel Alexander Cannon here on Logic Before Authority.